Hi everyone, my name is Cody Dunlap, and this is my Module 16 case study video. The case study is regarding missing funds from the Booster Club at a sporting event. This study takes place in a more rural location. Sounds like close to a suburban area where a lot of the families are moving to. The ones that are still in this area, though, are very faithful, very loyal, and they like to help out and volunteer. Two ways that parents volunteer at events is in the concession stand and taking gate admissions. This story involves the principal, Mr. Stevens, a parent, Mrs. Bowman, and there's also another gentleman, Mr. Dumas, that we will talk about later. Mrs. Bowman comes to Mr. Stevens and wants the PTA to help fund her daughter to go to a state cheerleading event in New York. And then the whole thing kind of comes to, there's a few problems when she is taking the gate admissions, and there ends up being some money missing. So we're going to dive right into Category 1. Here's what I know regarding this case study. We're talking about George Washington Middle School. Again, in a residential area, the population is going down. People are moving away to the more suburban areas. There is a principal that is pretty well liked by the whole community, the parents, the staff, the students. His name is Mr. Stevens. Mrs. Bowman is this mom in the story. Her daughter is a cheerleader, and she's the one that's pushing for this trip to New York. That ends up being declined. We also know at these extracurricular activities that parent volunteers are much needed. The Booster Club, really relies on these volunteers. This particular incident happened in the last basketball game of the year. Mrs. Bowman is the one actually running the gate admissions. And the story makes mention of Mr. Stevens being unable to supervise every area. He's the only administrator on duty, and so he can't be everywhere all at once. The story mentions that Mr. Dumas pays with a $50 bill, and that is significant because there is no $50 bill in the money bag when Mr. Stevens takes it at the end of the night. Mrs. Bowman makes a claim that some of the tickets were torn. I think she said 10 in all. But those tickets then, when she does use the tickets, the money that should have been collected for those tickets is also missing. And Mr. Stevens finds that all out at the end of the night. Some things that I would need to know. Was Mrs. Bowman, is she the only one available? After this meeting regarding the funding of the trip, maybe someone else could have been the one to actually handle the money at the gate. Were there any other administrators? It sounds like Mr. Stevens is run pretty ragged and stretched pretty thin at these events. When the bank bag was exchanged from Mrs. Bowman to Mr. Stevens, was there anything said, outside of the torn tickets? In fact, that wasn't even said because the video made mention of there being a note in the bag about that. And then anyone else that used the tickets, maybe it was just the previous game, Did anyone else claim that there were torn tickets? Surely someone else would have seen something like that if they were using these tickets as well. Okay. I identified the problem as some emotions ran high, and took a parent volunteer at a sporting event to take some money, and kind of rock the whole group, because now there's going to be some trust issues, and obviously the issue of trying to get the money back so we can benefit the students by having that money in that account. I also think there's a little bit of a problem of not enough administration at this event. I'm not particularly pointing just at Mr. Stevens. I think he's doing what he can, but to just have one individual there for such a big event as it sounds might be a problem as well. Looking to maybe staff that a little bit more with administrative individuals that could help supervise. For me, the plan of action. The story said that there was a security personnel that walked Mr. Stevens to his car, and then he actually counted the money in front of this individual. And I think I would just go back through and have the security man count in front of me just to make sure that I didn't miss anything. And then both of us look at the accounting sheet to verify that the amount that we did come up with jives with what the sheet has to say. I would talk to the last person that used the tickets to try to confirm the torn ones, the alleged torn ones, by Mrs. Bowman. We would buy new tickets if necessary. The one thing that is going to that will be a slight issue with that is the numbering on the new tickets. Hopefully it matches, or maybe just start the numbering over or whatever if that's going to be a problem. But buying new ones if the tearing is a legitimate issue. I would communicate with the superintendent, let him know what happened, my concerns, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. I'll meet with Mrs. Bowman, and then quite possibly meet with both of them together. And I want to bring the bag and the accounting sheet kind of as accountability and kind of as a paper trail, so that what is said in the meeting lines up with what actually happened. There would be some discipline for Miss Bowman if necessary, and maybe just in changing her responsibilities at sporting events, or maybe possibly asking her not to help anymore. I would hold a meeting with the PTA group and talk about financial responsibility with them. We would refund the account if possible, so that this did not negatively hurt our students in any way. And then I would like to talk with the student leadership team and just kind of bring them up to speed and talk to them about what is happening, or what has happened, and things we're doing to rectify that and prevent it from happening again. So to implement those, obviously there'd be some collaboration with the individual, the security individual. I would visit with the person that had the money bag and the tickets last as soon as I could. There would be some communication with the superintendent, and then some communication with Mrs. Bowman so we could schedule this meeting. There would have to be a sit down with Mrs. Bowman, maybe in that meeting, if possible, to just talk about the change in responsibilities that she might experience. I would communicate with the district office about talking about how we could replenish or refund that PTA account. or just the steps in which to go about that. I would schedule a PTA meeting with all of the parents involved there, and then also schedule a meeting to collaborate with the student leadership team. So category 3, to resolve the issues in thinking about what's best for kids. The money will be refunded if at all possible, so that that money can still be used to benefit kids. We'll be working to rectify this and to prevent it from happening again, whether that's through more supervision or just the communication with the PTA group to say, here's what happened, obviously keeping anonymity involved, not calling Mrs. Bowman out in front of her peers, but just that talking to. And then the students can hopefully see, because of the time that I'm investing in this situation, that their money, they are important through this process. They are important through the PTA group. As far as category 4, my thoughts and feelings and what I'm valuing, obviously I have a little bit of a trust issue now, maybe just with a certain individual, but just those feeling, those thoughts that creep up there. I'm wondering kind of how the superintendent will respond to the situation, and then how I can, settle Mrs. Bowman down if she is, upset and agitated, to help her so that we can all come to a conclusion together. I do have a renewed value for those that help and do it correctly. And then kind of some wonderings, some new thoughts about how we could supervise correctly at upcoming extracurricular activities. Things that are further open to investigation. That would just be what the superintendent has. Maybe he has some different ideas. Maybe we can talk and collaborate and think of the new things there. Just how my conversation with Mrs. Bowman is going to go. And will she agree to return the money so that maybe no legal action has to occur, and that we can all just get this done. How the PTA will respond as a whole to the situation. And then can we work to add some more administration to prevent this from happening again. Category 5 has to do with reflection. How do I, as a school leader, promote effective and efficient management? By supervising to begin with at these events. By checking on the tickets for the next event and maybe buying new if possible or if necessary. But just ensuring that this is not going to be a problem with the torn tickets if that is really what's going on. And just the promptness in meeting with the superintendent and Ms. Bowman, possibly together, to get this situation rectified. How am I promoting the social learning of every student? Again, just the promptness that I am going about this with. I'm keeping my emotions on track, and the students are seeing these steps working out and that this is being done correctly. The kids are being kept up to date, and the PTA is experiencing accountability. And then how am I promoting student academic learning? I am ensuring the proper use of money for all of our accounts. The kids are aware of the accountability, and this can flow back into the classroom, that they know that what their actions have accountability based on what they're seeing in this situation. And the communication that I am using is effective. Thank you for watching, and I can't wait